Good afternoon. I'm Mark Greenfield, and as chairman of the Associated Student Speakers Program, I'd like to welcome you all to another program on our noon lecture series. There's not much I could say this afternoon in the way of an introduction for our guests because I think anything I'd say you already know. Our guest today just recently won his 6th NCAA college basketball championship. And of course was just recently voted college basketball's Coach of the Year. He was a 3-time All-American at Purdue University, coached at Indiana State University before coming to UCLA, where he's coached basketball for over 20 years. I'm introducing to you today an institution at UCLA, one of the greatest basketball coach that has ever lived in college basketball, the Coach of the Year, Coach John Wooden. There are microphones at either side of the auditorium. The format today is simply question and answers, and if you'd like to walk to either mic, we'll field questions from the audience and Coach Wooden will answer.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Mark and to you for being here today. I didn't know whether anybody'd show up or not. I thought if I had the team with me, I knew you'd all be out here because I saw you so much during the year and deeply appreciate the support. I'm not being, or I am being completely honest when I say that during the year and the different places that we played, I feel that we have the finest support from our student body. And I mean real support. I don't like support that isn't, gets out of hand at all. I just like you to be behind the UCLA team and not against the opponent, just behind us, and that gives you a great lift. It's difficult to say just how much that does mean to you, but I know it means a lot to the team, and we simply have the best. I know you're out there. I don't know why that light hit me right in the eye. I can hardly see you, but I know you're out there. Now, if you have any questions, I'll attempt to give an opinion at any rate.
Has it been determined yet whether the dunk shot will be allowed next year?
No, it is not. The dunk will not be allowed, and as a matter of fact, they have recommended even stronger enforcement on the penalty for dunking in pregame warm-up. The Rules Committee has given the officials now complete jurisdiction 30 minutes prior to the start of the game, and if a team dunks in warm-up, they're supposed to be penalized with a technical free throw. And you'll remember that I had a couple of players and I had to that we left the floor a little early in our warm-up, and I chided them slightly in the dressing room, but it turned out all right.
What
Yes.
do you think of playing USC earlier in the conference schedule as contrasted with the final 2 games that usually is?
I think it would be much better to play them once earlier and once late. I believe that's better for your natural rival. I think you would enjoy it more. I think the fans of each team would enjoy it a little more that way than to have a two at the very last. And so much of the time, recently at any rate, it's been decided before you get to those games, the conference championship, and I believe that takes a little bit of the edge off of it, and this way, at least one of the games, the conference will not be decided, and I think it's much better this way.
I think there's a question on the left side of the auditorium.
Yes,
I can't see it, but let's hear it.
this is on, Coach was reflecting the other day on what do you think makes a winner? I mean, other teams have had a great deal of talent and have not had dynasties such as Louisville or Michigan or even SC, and they haven't been able to have success to the extent that you've had with equal or perhaps in some cases not as good raw talent. And I wonder what you think makes success.
Well, certainly there's no secret formula. in any way, in my opinion. I really don't know. It's difficult to answer. I do know this, that no, from the coaching point of view, no coach that is being honest at all and not deluding himself can feel that the coaching does it. I do feel that the coaching certainly has a part of it, because it would not be logical to say that players are different and coaches are all the same. Players are different and coaches are different. There are good coaches, there are poor coaches, there are average coaches. Players are the same way. But no coach wins consistently, at any rate, without the material there. However, I don't believe every coach wins with it. No coach wins without it. Not every coach wins with it. Now, assuming that you have it, we're all trying to get the most out of the material we have available, and you never get it all out of them, and you'd be surprised. We've had a run of pretty good luck here, but you'd be surprised at the amount of criticism that I receive, how I mishandle it, and I do receive a lot, and even my wife asks me why I did certain things oftentimes, and she's been my assistant for legally for 38 years, and I still get the whys from her. I don't think there's any real secret. From my own personal point of view, and I think my players will back me up on this, I have based it on a few things of what we're trying to do. Others may be doing the same thing and perhaps haven't had quite the same success because perhaps they didn't have the same personnel that we have, or play under different situations, circumstances. I say that there are three things primarily that will bring it about. And some of you may or may not know that I don't think that success necessarily is based on winning. And I think that's the criteria that most of you will use. If we win our games, that's successful. But we're not all created equal. The good Lord didn't see fit to create us all equal. Teams aren't all equal. Some are bigger, stronger, faster, and so we're not all created equal. But I think we're all have the same opportunity of making the most of what we have and to improve ourselves to the best of our abilities under the circumstances which exist for us. And I feel that there's three things primarily, and one is condition. You must be conditioned in whatever the game might be, basketball, football, or whatever it might be. You have to be conditioned for it, and you have to be more than just physically conditioned. You have to be mentally conditioned, and certainly I know that you can't be physically conditioned unless you're morally conditioned. There's no way. You tear down between practices faster than you build up. Now, you don't have perfection on this, but we try toward it. And I try to tell our players at the beginning of each year, I want us to be in better condition than any team against whom we will participate. I don't say as good, I say I want to be in better. Now, whether they are or not, I don't know, but if they think they are, it'll help. And I say I'll do my part at between, say, 3 and 5, or 3:30 and 5:30, somewhere in that period, and you'll have to do your part from 5:30 after practice closes until we report again the next day. Condition is extremely important. And then I say that next to condition, we have to have the ability to, we have to have a knowledge of and the ability to properly execute the fundamentals of the game. And there again, that's the coach's job. You have to teach them the fundamentals, and there's more to it than knowing the fundamentals. They must be able to properly execute them at the right time and to do it quickly. Quickness is the most important asset in athletics, in my opinion. You have to be able to do them quickly. If you can't do them quickly, it doesn't do you any good. If you can't get a shot, it doesn't do you any good to be a good shooter. And if you can't shoot, it doesn't do you much good to get the shot. So you have to be able to do both. And the same thing is true of playing defense or rebounding or whatever it might be. So you have to have a knowledge of and the ability to properly execute the fundamentals. And then, above all, if you won't put it together for the use of the team, then your lot's failure. If you put yourself ahead of the team, you're going to have problems. And there's many ways, and we're all selfish to some extent. I believe that selfishness, perhaps, to some degree, is a human trait. I think we have to fight ourselves in order not to be. I suppose it's natural in many respects to fend for oneself and to consider oneself first, but when we stop thinking of our neighbor or stop thinking of our teammates, we're not going to do as well as a group. And there are various means that I try to bring about team play. A lot of little things that you might not have noticed. Some you might have, and you wonder, is it just happened so? Well, I hope not. For example, I never want a player to score, but what he doesn't, after scoring, turn as he heads for defense and look at the man who gave him the pass and give him a nod or a wink or a smile, and he'll get another pass. And once in a while, a player will say, well, what if he's not looking? And I say, I guarantee you he'll be looking at you. If he gives you a pass, I guarantee we like to be patted on the back. You do. I do. I don't. I get a lot of criticism. I hope I can take criticism. We must be able to take it, and players certainly have, because the coach is criticizing them all the time. But you have to take it. You're going to learn from it. But I've always felt that commendation is a great means of motivation, and I try to use it as much as possible with my players, and I know that some of them get a kick in the pants that helps them once in a while, either perhaps not literally, but Sidney feels that I almost gave him a kick in the pants over at the Los Angeles Arena one night, but I know he came back and played the finest he played for us all year, and I was extremely pleased with him. He wasn't with me at the time. So I feel that the condition, the fundamentals, and the putting to use as a team, and you have to be industrious, and you have to have a lot of enthusiasm for the game if you're going to be able to do that. Those are just the things that I try to work on, a lot of others too, but basically I think those are the essentials that I consider most necessary toward success or attainment of peace of mind, without which you don't have success.
Coach, we get a
I
question
can't
over
see
here.
you, but I can hear you.
Oh, over on the other side, your left side.
Coach, I'd like to know if you have any opinion on the future of the 30-second clock in college basketball, if any.
Unfortunately, I have, yes. I don't think it has any future. I wish it did. I've been promoting and advocating the use of the time clock for many years. I was on the Rules Committee for 5 years, a few years back, for 5 consecutive years, and I promoted it each year, but I didn't get anywhere. And I got a little support, but not enough to carry the vote on the Rules Committee. I feel it would be good for everyone. I don't think it would hurt the game at all. I think it would help it in every respect. I didn't become sure of that until when I was a member of the Rules Committee. The first year that I was, we had the games of Mr. Hank Iba at Oklahoma State checked out, and we found out that they shot within an average of 18 seconds each time they had the ball, except late in the ball game when they were definitely stalling or protecting a lead. And it was my opinion, after that knowledge became available, that if his team shot within 18 seconds, probably 24 seconds was enough for anyone. But I still felt that 30 seconds would be better for college ball because international rules use 30 seconds, and I believe it would be a good thing if we used the same amount. Since Mr. Iba is the foremost exponent in the game of ball control, basketball, and if they seldom violate, I don't think a 30-second limit would hurt anyone, and it would eliminate that occasional partial game, and I don't think you'd have to outlaw the zone defense or anything else. I think it would just be a good thing for basketball. But as I say, one of the good things about this life is that we're not all alike. If we're all alike, it'd be terrible, and we're not. We don't look at things alike. We disagree on a lot of things, and that's good. And this is one of the things that I'm in disagreement with the majority. I'm in the minority on this particular case.
Coach, how did you start in basketball, and did you have any problem getting into coaching to begin with?
Oh, gee, that'd be a long story. That'd really go back into my entire life, I guess. I was born and raised on a farm in southern Indiana, as you obviously could see from the farm. there wasn't much to do, so we'd take one of Mother's old cotton socks and sew it up and fill it with rags and make a basketball out of it. And that's where I first started playing basketball, with a hoop or peach basket or something of that sort up against the barn door. And just got interested in it. And we had a grade school basketball team when I went to grade school, and we had basketball and baseball, and they have always remained my favorite sports, although I like them all. And just from that, I guess I had a little God-given talent, quickness, which I still feel is the most important asset that a player can have, and I liked it, and I went to high school, happened to 8 miles south of this farm where I lived, and I happened to go to a high school where they had done pretty well in basketball and had a fine teacher, coach there, and we did well. And I went to Purdue University then. They didn't give athletic scholarships at that time, but I wanted to be a civil engineer. And Purdue was a fine engineering school, but they didn't give scholarships, as I say, and I had to work. And if I had to work in the summers too, and in civil engineering you had to go to summer school, summer camp, all 3 summers of your between your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior years. And I found that out about the end of my freshman year. So you don't lose much, as you know, anyway. So I decided I'd change to the School of Forestry. Purdue had a good School of Forestry, but at this time I had learned a lot during that first year. And I checked out the School of Forestry, and I found out that you had to go to summer forest camp, ranger camp, the 3 years. So I decided that I would take a teaching course and major in English, which I did, and with no intention, perhaps, of getting into coaching. And upon graduation, I almost stayed at Purdue. I became very good friends of the head of our English department, Dr. Creek, a wonderful man, and I liked him very much. And he wanted me to stay on with the fellowship and eventually turn into college English teacher, I guess. But I decided Nellie said you can make more money if we get married and get out something else. So we got married, and I took a teaching job where I coached football, basketball, baseball, track, and taught 5 English classes a day and was director of athletics in high school. Great days. I say that sincerely. Great days.
Coach Wooden, who, in your opinion, this year is the best high school basketball senior in the country? Did he sign with UCLA? In other words, who is better, Bill Walton or McMillan?
Well, I didn't see McMillan, and most of the publications seem to think McMillan was the number 1 basketball high school player in the country this year, and it's quite likely that there might be someone that hasn't received nearly as much publicity that might be better than McMillan or even Walton. But I think Walton's pretty good, and we're happy with him. And I'm most pleased that he did decide to, of course that isn't official yet, but in my opinion, it is just as good as official, because I believe that the word of this young man is good, even though I found out in the past, much to my disappointment on certain occasions, that a fellow on Monday he would never go anyplace else, but on Tuesday he calls me and tells me he's going someplace else. So these things do happen. But I don't believe it'll happen in the case of Bill Walton, and he's an outstanding prospect, outstanding. He also has about a 3.7 grade point average, and that goes right along with being about 6'11" and comparatively agile, and he has a brother that's going to be on our football team. You know, it's pretty good size too. Any of you know Bruce? He's 6'8", about, oh no, 6'6", weighs about 280. He's a nice sized young man too.
Coach, have you ever considered coaching a professional basketball team?
Yes, I've considered it, but never too seriously. To be quite honest with you, and I've been asked this question many times, I've had a number of opportunities in the professional league. I turned one down just about a year ago at about 3 times what I make, so there must be some reason for it. And my reasons are my family. They didn't want me to take it. That's the primary reason. I thought it would be a great challenge, and it seemed like good spending money, too. But I'm real proud of the fact that the people that it would have helped the most, my family, are the ones that didn't want me to do it. I really didn't want to anyway, but I thought I would if they wanted me to. I like it at UCLA very much.
Coach, have you seen the Compton Junior College basketball team play? And also, are Michael Reed and Hollyfield coming to UCLA?
Yes, I've seen the Compton Junior College. They won the Junior College State Championship, and I've seen Michael Reed. I'm going to have dinner with him tonight, as a matter of fact. And and Hollifield, and they're pretty good basketball players.
After you win it next year, who are you going to give the watch to?
Well, I haven't talked to my son or my son-in-law recently, so I'm not sure. I'd certainly like to have the opportunity to do that, though. You know, I mentioned on the way over that I would like to take another team back to the Astrodome. I mean next year. Since the finals will be played there and none of our other games would be played there, I'd certainly like to play in the Astrodome next year.
Coach Wooden, you made it known through the papers that you enjoyed coaching this year more than the last 3 with Alcindor. How do you personally feel about getting another big man in the lineup?
I think it's tremendous. You get the right one, and I think it's really tremendous. No, there were other things. It wasn't the big man that caused me disappointments and grief so much in the last preceding years. It was other little things of extracurricular nature, perhaps, that brought me some disappointments. The team itself, the teams in those years, I was, for the most part, the play of their accomplishments, I had to be quite pleased and proud. But at the same time, it is not the style of game that I felt that I knew best and could teach best. And so it was and the fact also that we were, as I said, we were almost, after the first year, playing to keep from losing rather than trying to do our best and attempt to win. And this year, that wasn't the case. And I don't think it will be the case even with getting another big man.
Also, Coach Wooden, getting back to the Jacksonville game, I don't think anyone was too surprised with Wicks blocking Gilmore's shots. How did you feel when Rowe blocked one?
Well, Curtis has certain abilities that we're well aware of, and I'm very proud of all the players. I feel that it was a team situation, and I think Sidney and certainly received a little more personal acclaim probably because of it, and deservedly so. But as far as the defense of Gilmore is concerned, Patterson's part was very important, just as important as Sidney's, and I think each man did the job that they were supposed to do. And then when Patterson moved down to do his job, somebody had to take care of the man on the high post, and so I think it was a team proposition, and I'm just proud of the way that they worked together as a team.
Coach Wooden, you have advocated the 30-second clock. What about advocating, or what is your opinion about the Olympic rules, which, as I see them, tend to eliminate the advantages of size, or of tall people, or eliminate the size differential? Do you think that Olympic rules have a place in college basketball?
Well, I like some of the Olympic rules, not all of them. I think the not shooting fouls, unless in the act of shooting or in the last couple of minutes, tends to bring out unnecessarily rough play, which I don't think is particularly good. And but some of the rules I do. I I think the clock is the most important as far as improving our own game, and it would be the only one, I believe, at the moment that I would advocate. I have some other ideas on rules that I'd like to put in spite, and this may shock you a little, in as much as we're getting another big man. I've said repeatedly, and I won't change my mind, I said this when we had Alcindor, that I think you should eliminate the offensive rebound basket. I think it should be taken away. I don't think a man should be able to put the missed shot back in. Get possession, pass to somebody else, get it back, and then put it in, yes. That's one of the rules that I'd like to see in. I would think it would be good for basketball. Another rule that I'd like to see put in is eliminate all jump balls. I don't think they're good. I think the officials never yet have learned to throw the ball straight, and they don't know how high to throw it, because there's no way that they could know the jumping ability of the two men that are there. Maybe they haven't seen them before, and one's smaller, maybe a great jumper, and the other one's taller, can't jump too well, and the ball's supposed to be thrown a little higher than either man can jump. Well, how do they know? And it's a little higher, so it's very difficult. And besides that, no one's supposed to be moving around the lines, and somebody moves around there all the time. So I think it would make it much easier on the officials. I think it would help the game, start the game with the ball out of bounds to the visiting team at the center line, and from that time on, whenever there's an out of bounds, whenever there's a jump ball, just take it out of bounds, alternate it, take it out of bounds to center of the opposite team, regardless of what might happen. I believe that would help the game. And I'd also like to see them do away with that silly idea of raising your hand when you make a foul. Gracious sakes alive, you're embarrassed enough. And there's a lot of officials that call a foul, and then they run over looking at him, and say, you better get your hand up, I'm going to call a technical. Why, some of your players would feel like, and I don't blame them. I think they're embarrassed, and every now and then I think the officials should be embarrassed because they call a foul and two players put up their hands, and now the officials got to decide now which one was it. And he has to decide. He has to go over the scorer's bench and designate on whom the foul was called, so why embarrass the player any further? I don't like it.
Zeroing in on one other aspect of the Olympic rules, especially with the big man coming, that would mean a widening of the key. Do you think that, at least at the baseline, do you think the key should be widened or stay as it is?
I think it's all right as it is. I think that the width of it now is good, the 12-foot wide key. I think it was needed. When it used to be only 6 feet, I think it was a good move to move it out. I don't particularly favor the widening it further, the Olympic style, but I'm not violently against it at all. I'm not violently against it, just don't favor it either.
Coach, at a recent speakers program last quarter, Mr. Enberg severely chastised the Pac-8 refereeing. You have already started to hit on that. What is your opinion of the quality of the refereeing in the Pacific 8?
I only wish that the quality of the refereeing was comparable to the quality of the UCLA team. I'd rather not get into that. And in all fairness, I must say that I think the basketball is by far the most difficult of all games to officiate. It's very, very difficult. I have certain ideas the way it could be improved, yes. I think that most problems result as a lack of rapport between officials and coaches and players, and I think that could be handled. It isn't as much judgment. If you have good rapport, you can get away with a little judgment that might be questioned at times. But if you don't have rapport, there's always the problem. And I think things could be done more along that line.
Mr. Wooden, how much longer, how many more years would you like to coach?
Well, I'm 59, and mandatory retirement is 67. My wife says that 59 is a pretty good, but you have to have something else to do. I don't know of anything I'd rather do than coach basketball at UCLA.
Coach, there are reports that next year you're going to get the 6'10 center as a transfer from the #1 JC in the country from Vincennes, Indiana, Bob McAdoo. Is that true?
Who is he? We have not been in contact with anyone from any junior college back in Indiana at all, and I wouldn't know who the young man is of whom you speak. So that's a false rumor. There are others going around too.
Coach, next year obviously we have the team to beat, but who do you think are the teams that are going to be the ones that we're going to have to beat, particularly in the Pacific 8 and then on the way through the finals?
Well, you just have to consider the teams in the Pacific 8, because if you don't win the conference, you don't get into it. And I think that always must be the objective, and it's it's my objective at the start of each season is to try to prepare our team to the best of my ability to win the conference. And I try to use the early season games. I don't call them practice games because every game is important, but I want to try to develop the team toward the point of winning the conference. And I may do some things in the early season games that if it were a conference game that I wanted to win, felt was that important, I might play it a little differently, but at the same time, here's the time I still want to win, but I can find out some things that may stand us in good stead later. And I think that USC, who loses, I believe, only one man off their squad, are going to be very, very strong. Plus they had two tremendous freshmen that they feel that will have a good chance of moving somebody out. I don't know who they might be, but they're real good freshmen, this I know. I think Washington keep most of their players, and they had a tremendous freshman team too. They'll be strong. Oregon keep most of theirs. They'll be strong again. California could be. They keep most everyone, and they could be. I think they have a very fine talent. They've had problems of one sort or another, but maybe they'll get them straightened out, and I believe the talent is there on occasions that they're very good. And I believe that those are the ones that at the moment I feel are probably will be the strongest. I hope we can be a little more consistent because we're going to be good too. Yes.
Coach, the very first remark you made at the beginning of the year was that after the preview game you said you thought you would have a little depth this year. And at the end of the year, it came to me that, for instance, Lou Henson and Bob Boyd, they tried to run our team down because they thought after our first drive we were lucky. Did you think that was true? What did you mean by that you thought you had a little depth? I mean, something where did you still think you were right at the end of the year?
That's a difficult question for me to answer with complete honesty and validity, I never like to, in any sense, discredit or what some say poor mouth your own players, and I never do, and try not to. Certainly I may, by inference sometimes, indicate such is the case. But certainly at the beginning of the season, I'm not going to say that we have no depth if I don't think we have any depth at all. At the beginning of a season, I'm not going to say I don't think we have a very good team. I don't believe in that. You that have been here for a number of years, and there are some perhaps around that I thought the corner of my eye caught one or two that might have been here when I first came here. And they never heard me then poor mouth the team, even though I didn't know anything about them. I don't believe in that. I think as far as this year's team, in my opinion, as things went along, we had 5 players that just seemed to stand out above the others. I thought there was a a drop-off. Maybe not so much in individual ability as it was in the ability to come together as a unit. Now, perhaps I was wrong. And yet, on certain occasions, we had men that could come in, I felt, for a limited amount of time and do a good job, and some did. And I could both recite some occasions when that happened. But I believe that there was a definite line of demarcation between our starting five this year and our other players. And perhaps there wouldn't have been such a line had I played them more. So I don't know. Yes.
Do you feel there was one key game in the year that might have solidified the team and really got them ready to go all out this year?
Well, as in most years, there are different spots. I felt one of the things that helped us more than anything else was our very second game, the first week of the season. We played Arizona here and won handily, and our players, I got the idea next day of practice that we just won the national championship. And I knew that we had a lot of deficiencies, and I knew we were going to have trouble with Minnesota that weekend. Now, if we hadn't had trouble with Minnesota, I don't know. They'd either been as good as they thought they were, or I would have been just completely wrong. I don't know. But I think when Minnesota did give us such a good ball game and almost beat us, we were fortunate to win that one. Very fortunate. Sidney got a tip-in the last seconds to tie it up, and then we won it in the overtime. And it wasn't an easy tip-in by any means. Although Henry did miss a very good shot that he normally might have made, he wouldn't have had to tip it in. But Sidney at least anticipated that possibility that he might, and was there and got it in. And that I think was a good thing for us. I thought then our practices were much better the next week, and we needed them at that time because just after the next week's games come final examinations, and there's a little layoff there, and things weren't so good. And then we did pretty well right after that, and then in the tournament we had a tough time with Princeton, but that didn't do us any good. They passed that off as a luck thing or something, and then came Oregon State, in which John Ecker made his presence felt very nicely, and I think we're all very happy for John, one of the nicest young men I have. And I think that helped us a little bit, the fact that we had such a difficult time with Oregon State on our home floor. And I didn't see any particular point, except that I did feel that to some degree we were having little internal problems here and there, a little bit, as you have on every team, and can't always handle it. There's always some little problems. And Oregon thrashed us. They thrashed us. There was they didn't luck out on us. They didn't just outshoot us. They outshot us. They out-rebounded us. They outsped us. They whipped us, and real good. And that was real good for us. Real good. Strange it may seem, it was real good for us. And then the next thing, as far as a victory that I think had us completely ready for the tournament, was not the loss to USC here at Pauley Pavilion, but was the win against USC at the Los Angeles Arena after we got off to such a poor start and then came back and won. Had we lost again to USC, I in my own opinion, we would never have won the tournament. Coming back and winning that after being down, and down rather substantially at the start of the game, and that doesn't particularly bother me to be down early. Sometimes I'm more frightened when we get ahead too easily. If I think the other team is a good, solid basketball team, I get worried if we get out in front too quickly. Sounds funny, doesn't it? But I really do, because basketball can change so quickly. Now, if the team, I don't have much respect for them and don't think they're very good, and then we get out to a big lead, I know that's all right. We'll just keep going. against a good team, I'm not sure that I really like. Don't want to get off behind, though, like we did against them. But I think coming back and playing as well as we did after being in a rather tough situation, I think that game ensured our going ahead and winning the championship. And then I was no more than just normally concerned at any game in the tournament. One game I feared more than any other. Could you guess who that one might be? New Mexico State. And for the reason that, the psychological reason that we had knocked them out of the tournament the last couple of years, and I knew that they had said that primarily that one person did it, and I never felt that one person did it. I thought it was our team that did it. And now I think they feel that our team did it all 3 times.
Coach Wooden, who's your choice for the NBA champion, and what do you think of Pete Maravich's chances of breaking into the Hawk lineup next year?
I think Pete Maravich's chances are excellent. I really think he has. He's going to be a great pro, just as he became a tremendous scorer in college basketball. I disagree about him being the greatest of the college basketball players. He's the greatest scorer, yes, but there's a lot more to the game than scoring. But he's capable of doing a lot more, and I think he is going to do a lot more in the pros. I think he's going to be a great pro. I felt all along from the beginning, as many of my closer friends will say, that I thought the Lakers might win this thing if Chamberlain got back, and after seeing them play, and I think they're getting better each game. And it would, of course, New York now with having beaten Milwaukee first 2, but those were at home. It's a little different than the Lakers having beaten Atlanta 2 at Atlanta. I think the Lakers have a lock on theirs, and I'm not sure that New York has, but certainly they're in an enviable position. But I still feel that this may be the Lakers' year. Yes.
Do you feel that within a couple of years, Alcindor might lead the Bucks to a dynasty such as we saw with Russell and the Celtics?
I think it's quite possible, although I don't believe his supporting cast at the time he went with them was anything comparable to the supporting cast that Russell had when he went with the Celtics. And furthermore, I think the competition in the league has become so much stronger throughout that it's more difficult to establish a dynasty. It's just like intercollegiate basketball now. It has become so strong in the last 10 years that it's impossible for any team to establish a dynasty of any sort.
Coach Wooden?
Coach Wooden, do you have any preference to what song you'd like Dick Enberg to sing after you take the Pac-8 next year?
Yes. I just let him announce. You know, he may have told you, or you may have heard him on the air, that he had several letters from different people. Oh, he had a lot of letters, but he had from voice teachers, and some recommended that he have nothing to do with any voice teacher because nothing could be done for him.
I think we'll have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Coach Wooden?
Yes?
Is Steve Patterson going to be playing professional basketball next year, or is he going to be playing with the Bruins?
Is Steve back there?
No, he's not.
Was he here a while ago? Oh. Well, if I can believe Steve this week, he'll be back with us. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Okay.
Could you tell us some of the JC prospects that you think that we might have a chance of getting?
Well, we have talked with only 3 at all, and that's the 2 from Compton that were mentioned a while ago, Reed and Hollifield, and Sven Langenberg from Cyprus. And I know that there was some question of Steve in my mind, as well as a lot of others, and we've been talking very strongly and feverishly and hopefully and imploringly to Sven Langenberg from Cyprus, because he is tall, and he's only played basketball for a year and a half, but he looked pretty fair against our freshmen, and we thought he might be able to help us. And that's all, I believe. Coach Crum, my very, very able and fine varsity assistant, and heads up our recruiting primarily, and of course Coach Cunningham helps him. And I don't know if you truly appreciate Coach Crum and Coach Cunningham. You should. They do a tremendous job. I think Gary with his freshmen has done an outstanding job, and he's a wonderful young man. Coach Crum, as my assistant, is really fine. He's wonderful, and he's no yes man, and that's what you need. A coach needs someone that will, take issue with him. If you just have someone patting you on the back all the time, being a yes man, and you don't improve. You have to have someone that has ideas of their own, and Denny does have. For the life of me, I can't understand how he has some of them, but he does have ideas of his own. But we usually talk them out and come to some decision. Yes.
One of his ideas was the zone defense on the Oregon trip, wasn't it?
Well, one of Denny's ideas is zone defense all the time, but we don't use it all the time. Yeah, I've told him that I felt that his zone defense's idea set us back about a month, but it did work pretty well against Oregon State.
Coach?
Yes, it did.
Coach, I'd like to ask what is kind of a hypothetical question for you, but what all the coaches in America would like to know about defense, and that is, how do you beat the Bruins? You had some trouble against both a zone and a man-to-man. The zone seemed to be most effective against the front line, but allowed the guards to shoot almost at will, and the man-to-man, which was more effective against the guards, allowed your front line to shoot almost at will. I was just wondering if there was some kind of another defense, like when you took apart Houston a couple of years ago with the diamond and one. Would there be anything to a defense that played a 3-man zone on the inside, but a man-to-man on the guards?
I think our offense with this particular team, we're talking about this particular team now, was so well balanced that there was no defense that you could be sure that would be completely effective against us. Minnesota hurt us with a zone, and we killed a zone by SC, and yet their man-to-man hurt us. And New Mexico State tried the man-to-man on the guards and the zone in the deep, as you mentioned, and we handled that in pretty good shape. I don't believe that there was any particular defense that you could say would be better against the UCLA team this past year. I think on certain occasions one might work a little better, and on other occasions a different one might. But I really don't believe that there was any one, in my honest opinion, and I'm not trying to evade the question in any way. I don't believe that you could say that any one might have been better than any other one.
I'm afraid that's all the time we'll have. Let me thank all of you for coming and thank Coach Wooden for making it by this afternoon.